Reality slips far away, fiction comes alive, we start to play. Hope is no more behind the closed door as we drift away from where we were before. Hope and hopelessness become one, it's all meaningless, we've already begun. Yup, we are all one and the same, never opposites, we play the same game. So I listen to the world and right from wrong, stay focused so I can stay strong. If you ever wonder why I'm trapped inside, it's probably just because I told a pack of lies. Maybe a dream, maybe it was pride, maybe for myself I often wonder why. Until our very last breath, we're running after life, trying to beat death.
Walking in line between hope and despair, running from the truth, but it's already here. Told so many lies, I don't know if they can find me. Only one life to live, so choose wisely. Heads or tails, they even know beside your horn. Doesn't really matter if it's on the same point. If you wanna achieve, you gotta believe the time right now. There's the door, here's the key.
Chase the pain, don't let it fade away. There's a ray of hope beyond despair. Move on, look on the truth in this world.
Only one life to live, so choose wisely.
Let the world confusion find a solution. Beat the twisted evil face. Just do it, go for it.
So then, who killed Hifumi?
Whoever did is the mastermind, the true killer.
He was killed in the repository, so he must not have been killed long after transporting Taka's body.
So he must have been killed after Taka's body vanished, but before we found both bodies in the repository.
During that time, we'd all split up and were searching for Taka's missing body. In other words, during that time, none of us have alibis.
Wait, but me and Sakura were together.
Stop trying to steal my spotlight, you stupid walrus!
Who are you calling a walrus?
Anyway, when they were killed bothers me too. But there's something that's been bothering me even more.
And what might that be?
The weapon they used to kill Hifumi!
The weapon?
Yeah, because according to the Monokuma file, the way Taka and Hifumi were killed was almost the same, with them having similar fractures and all. But just as Hammer 3 and 4 were still laying around in the Nervous office in the equipment room, right? So if Hifumi was killed in the repository, the culprit would have had to grab one of the hammers, kill Hifumi, then put the hammer back where they found it. But wouldn't that be seriously risky for him?
I'm surprised. It seems there's some semblance of a brain knocking around that skull of yours after all.
Hell yeah, it's packed in there good and tight.
He's right, though I don't understand it either. The Monokuma file makes it clear that they were killed using similar instruments. But if the hammers were already laying around those other rooms...
So the question is, how could the culprit have gotten their hands on either of the hammers? Personally, I haven't a clue.
So which hammer was used to attack Celeste? Number 1 or number 2?
Those were accounted for in other rooms too. And I don't think either one is big enough to kill someone.
Then,
Is it not possible that they might have used a different weapon?
I don't think it is possible. They were both killed with the same kind of thing, right?
So then, what was used to kill Hifumi?
The weapon that was actually used to kill Hifumi. The whole picture surrounding this case won't become clear until we figure that out. Somehow, I have to find the truth.
So what was used to kill Hifumi? Was it just his hammer 3? Maybe just his hammer 4?
Well, whatever it was, there's one thing we have to figure out. How was the culprit able to move around so freely with the weapon? How did nobody witness them carrying it?
Sounds like Justice Hammer 5 is about to make its appearance. Check out murdergamer.com/hammertime for more info.
Well, one thing seems pretty clear. The murder weapon had to be one of the Justice Hammers. And, that's about it.
Hifumi was killed in the repository, right? So if the weapons used to kill both of them were actually similar.
So what was used to kill Hifumi? Was it just his hammer 3? Maybe just his hammer 4?
Well, whatever it was, there's one thing we have to figure out. How was the culprit able to move around so freely with the weapon? How did nobody witness them carrying it?
Sounds like Justice Hammer 5 is about to make its appearance. Check out murdergamer.com/hammertime for more info.
Well, one thing seems pretty clear. The murder weapon had to be one of the
No, that's wrong. The murder weapon wasn't a Justice Hammer at all. No, it was something completely different.
But, seriously? A different weapon?
Specifically, a hammer from the repository. The killer could have easily used that to kill Hifumi. Now, all the hammers in the repository were covered in flecks of grit and debris. For some reason, one of them had been scrubbed clean.
Huh?
And the reason it had been scrubbed clean was most likely because it had been used to commit murder. If the hammer got covered in Hifumi's blood, of course they'd have to clean it off. I'd also like to point out that the repository has all kinds of hammers. Big ones, small ones, and even some flat mallet-like ones. I think whoever made the Justice Hammers used those as a basis for their design.
If that's true, that would explain the Monokuma file's note about the wounds being similar.
So Hifumi moved Taka's body to the repository, where someone else then used a hammer to kill him.
And whoever did that is the true killer. The one Hifumi was working with. And the one who betrayed him.
Hold on a moment. I still think it's strange to assume someone was working together with him. The way the graduation rule works, there is no benefit to helping someone else carry out a murder. So the idea that anyone would work together like that is simply ludicrous. We talked about this, did we not?
We did talk about how there wouldn't be any reason for anyone to work together. At least, that's what we thought at first. But
based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one person is complicit in the murder, only the one who actually carried out the act can graduate and survive. Assuming the rule holds true, it is simply impossible that two people worked together on this.
That is how the rules were explained to us.
But that only really applies if there's one murder, right? In this case, however, there were 2 murders.
can we really say there's no chance 2 people work together on this?
Based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one person is complicit in the murder, only the one who actually carried out the act can graduate and survive. Assuming the rule holds true, it is...
No, that's wrong. Since there were 2 murders, it's at least plausible that more than one person was involved.
What do you mean?
If there'd only been one murder, then yes, the idea of an accomplice isn't really worth considering. Naturally, if only one person can be saved per murder, an accomplice has no risk versus reward benefit.
Risk versus reward benefit?
The payoff for working together, the reward that balances out the risk of taking part in the scheme. There's no point in being someone's accomplice if there's no benefit to you. However, if there were some potential mutual reward for the risk, then cooperation becomes possible.
You're saying that 2 people could act as each other's accomplices to commit 2 separate murders.
I think that's what the true killer told Hifumi. They would each have an accomplice for their crime. And based on the case's events, Hifumi would have been the first one to act, murdering Taka. They made him carry out the first murder so he couldn't back out of helping them later on.
So in this case, there wasn't one single person committing multiple murders. Instead, each person killed someone, creating 2 separate incidents. And it only looked like one person because that's how the true killer designed it to look. A single suspicious individual, a similar weapon used in each crime, disappearing bodies. Creating one seamless set of circumstances, they made it look like one person was behind it all.
The mastermind picked their target and managed to convince him to go along with their plan. And then, to avoid the no accomplices rule, they simply killed their accomplice. Which, if true, means that betraying Hifumi was part of the plan from the very beginning.
That's just awful! How could anyone be so cruel?
You think so? I can't help but admire its cunning. Still, their choice of accomplice seems odd.
The effort made to convince us the 2 murders were the same. That was the main characteristic this time. Kyoko must have noticed that fact from the very beginning. Which is why she said not to look at this as a series of connected events, but entirely separate incidents. Kyoko really is amazing. Although, when you think about it, she's almost too amazing. Like, it's almost unnatural how good she is at this.
I understand how an accomplice could be involved, but who was the one pulling Hifumi's strings?
That's problem numero uno right now.
The true killer manipulated Hifumi to carry out a number of actions, and in the end, murdered him. And the debates up till now, the way the case has unfolded, when you consider all that, there's really only one person who seems to fit. Here's my answer. It was Celeste.
Ah, so I'm the suspicious individual now, am I? I really do hate this kind of joke.
A joke? I wonder.
So what you are saying, then, is that I specifically chose to work together with Hifumi. The idea that I would choose to spend any amount of time interacting with him, that I would go within 10 feet of that shit for brains, that lazy, worthless, goddamn idiot! Pardonnez-moi.
Just to be clear, there is evidence to support it.
Is that so?
It is. Throughout the investigation, there was a certain behavior that was common only to the 2 of you. Considering what we've learned so far, it only further proves that the 2 of you were working together.
What it is that only Celeste and Hifumi had in common. I got it. The behavior they had in common had to do with the suspicious individual in the suit, doesn't it? The only ones who ever actually saw Robo Justice firsthand were Celeste and Afumi.
Shush! The adults are talking now.
Sorry.
As he said, only Celeste and Hifumi ever laid eyes on the costumed individual. If we accept that Hifumi was one of the culprits, we can't help but suspect what Celeste has said as well.
Are you saying everything they told us was a lie?
After taking Hifumi to the nurse's office, we all began our search for this individual, correct? And not too long after that, do you remember what Celeste said?
I saw a shadow, something moving around at the top of the stairs.
We headed to the second floor specifically because of what she claimed to have seen. Next, to draw us all to the physics lab, up on the third floor.
She let out a blood-curdling scream.
And when we'd all come to see what was wrong, what was it she said?
Celeste, what's wrong?
That was a rather intense scream for someone like you.
I saw him! The strange costumed man! He ran off as soon as I screamed. I was blocking the stairs, so he headed further down the hallway and disappeared.
Once she'd done her job of getting us all up to the physics lab, it was time for her partner to get to work.
Huh?
What was that?
That came from downstairs! It must have been...
Hifumi! He's in the nurse's office. This is bad. Come on, we have to go back.
It was to get us to divide into two groups, so that we would discover both bodies at the same time?
In fact, Celeste was precisely the one who proposed that we split up.
Then why don't we split into two groups?
I'll lead the hunting party. That seems much more interesting.
Very well then. Makoto and Hina, you come with me to the nurse's office. I will leave the capture of the suspicious individual to Toko, Sakura, and Byakuya.
Well, if Celeste and Hifumi were working together, all those chance events suddenly become connected. And on top of that, that piercing cry of yours early on. That was to signal Hifumi, wasn't it? It was your way of telling him, we're on the third floor, everything's going according to plan. Why else would you let out a scream that could have carried across the sea?
I've just realized another strange thing. When we found Fumi in the nurse's office, who we now know was only pretending to be dead.
I certainly was not expecting this. I did not imagine that Hifumi would be murdered.
Celeste, you were the first one to say he's been murdered. You wanted to make sure we wouldn't have any doubt in our minds.
I don't believe it. Everything. The whole thing was one big act.
Hina, you were with Celeste when Fumi's body disappeared, right?
Yeah, I was feeling kind of sick, so Celeste took me to the bathroom. Wait, then that was...
She wasn't worried about you. She just saw a chance to help Hifumi sneak out of the nurse's office.
Each piece isn't much by itself, but start putting them together and the picture gets very ugly indeed.
Wouldn't you agree, Celeste?
I have no idea what you mean.
Don't bother trying to deny it. You made one fatal mistake.
Oh, did I?
I didn't even catch it myself when you first said it. But, looking back, I can say that one little slip-up was your undoing.
are you talking about?
I'm talking about what you said after Hifumi's body disappeared and we returned to the nurse's office.
They must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. We're all going to die here. We're going to die, just like those guys died.
I remember her saying that too, but I don't understand what's so strange about it.
Then pay attention. Sakura, Toko, and I were the first to discover Taka's body in the equipment room. Then Makoto showed up and told us Hifumi had been killed, so Sakura and I left with Makoto. Once we were in the hall, we ran into Celeste and the four of us headed to the nurse's office. Now, the entire time we were together, none of us said anything about Taka being dead. Think about it. Celeste's comment doesn't make any sense. It was completely out of place.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, although I don't really get what it means.
You hear that, Celeste? Everyone's having some trouble understanding. Could you repeat what you said? If you're really not the culprit, you shouldn't have any problem repeating it, right?
Byakuya said that Celeste's comment doesn't make sense. But what is he alluding to?
All I said was, they must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. They must be positively elated. We are all going to die here. We are going to die, just like those guys died. And that is all I said.
And that's all it takes to finish this. It's obvious, isn't it? What was so strange about Celeste's comment?
And when she said that, she should only have known about Hifumi's death. With that in mind, what's so strange about what she said is...
All I said was, they must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. They must be positively elated. We are all going to die here. We are going to die, just like the...
No, that's wrong. That's right. There's no reason Celeste should have said, just like those guys died. When she said that, none of us had told her Taka was dead.
Exactly. And we didn't run into her until after we were all out in the hall. So there was never any chance for her to have seen his body in the equipment room for herself.
So how did you know, Celeste? How did you know more than one person had been killed? And how did you know they were both guys? Because Kyoko had also disappeared, right? So she could have been dead too.
You all have such vivid imaginations. You know that?
Imaginations?
You claimed that I was lying when I told you about the suspicious person I saw. Then what about the picture I took? How do you explain this picture of the costumed villain dragging Hifumi away?
It has to be some kind of setup, right? Celeste put the suit on, and then she used the camera's timer to set up the picture.
Have you forgotten so quickly? You were the only one who could have possibly fit into that suit. Plus, I happen to know that this particular camera does not have a timer. In other words, it is an unassailable fact that this is a picture of Hifumi being dragged away. If everything I told you was a lie, How can this picture exist?
Simple. Are we sure that's really a picture of the suspect dragging Hifumi away?
What could you possibly mean by that?
Surely there are other explanations than the one you've offered up.
No, there is no other explanation.
Other explanations? If it wasn't a picture of the suspect dragging Hifumi away, the only other possibility is... I got it! It's not a picture of the suspect dragging Hifumi away. I would say it's a picture of Hifumi dragging the suspect away.
That's certainly within the realm of possibility. The one being dragged off in that picture isn't Hifumi, but the person inside the robot suit. We've simply been led to believe that it's the other way around. And the strange costume might only exist to lead us astray even further. If you saw someone wearing something like that in this situation, of course you'd notice and be suspicious.
That's what happened. You put me to sleep and made me out to be the bad guy in all this.
Such a thing is utterly impossible. Hifumi was dragging him away? Ridiculous.
Is it? I don't think it's ridiculous at all.
Then shut your mouth and allow me to educate you.
Celeste thinks she can prove there's no way Hifumi was dragging the suspect away. But is that really possible?
You dressed me up in that suit after I passed out. Then you just draped me across Hifumi and had him carry my weight. You tried to make me look like the bad guy.
Like I said, ridiculous. As you can see in the picture, the suspect is standing perfectly upright. If the person inside the suit was unconscious, there's no way they could stand up straight like that.
Then the fortune-telling idiot is the culprit after all!
No way!
If I remember right, Hina said... She said that she couldn't bend at the waist.
You dressed me up in that suit after I passed out. Then you just draped me across Hifumi and had him carry my weight. You tried to make me look like the bad guy.
Like I said, ridiculous. As you can see in the picture, the suspect is standing perfectly upright. If the person inside the suit was unconscious, there's no way they could stand up straight.
No, that's wrong. No, even if the person inside the suit were unconscious, they could still stand up like that. Because that Robo-Justice suit had a certain characteristic.
You totally can't bend at the waist. Seems like a pretty obvious oversight. That's right. They totally made a mistake when they made it, so it couldn't bend at the waist.
I'm not so sure that was a mistake. I think the suit was designed from the beginning to be used the way it was.
Celeste and Hifumi took the suit they'd specially designed and stuffed Hiro into it. That's how they were able to fake that whole thing. The point of it all was to make us believe whoever was in the suit was to blame.
Well then, I suppose this is checkmate.
Checkmate?
想と現実に一石を閉じて個性を磨け結界悩むなんだよまた一つ消去頭からケツまでそれが我がエンタメだまだ信じないさ紐解いたシャラチケットバスでもっと舞い上がって Everybody put your hands up さあフライ翼になれ見てみたいな宇宙になれる君今だ成長期新世界 Everybody put your hands up さあフライさあファイアきっと皆さんなりたい自分に探す両方は
I wrote a poem for Master, and I hope he likes it as much as you just liked our video. Here we go. Roses are red, violets... Achoo!
If you don't subscribe, I'm coming for you!